Hello, hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Modern Moms Roadmap to Balance podcast as we dive into our special series, Love After Kids. And today I have a special guest. Her name is Alyssa Mayette. She is a licensed professional counselor with over 10 years of experience helping individuals and couples build healthier relationships with themselves and others. Alyssa specializes in relational and EMDR therapy, helping adults explore how their attachment based trauma impacts their ability to connect. She's also a mom to an amazing tween, so she knows firsthand what it's like to juggle motherhood, entrepreneurship, and partnership, all while trying to maintain balance in love. In this episode, we're talking about what it really takes to maintain a strong, connected relationship after kids. Alyssa shares her personal and professional insights on navigating blended family dynamics, building communication habits that actually work, and how to intentionally create connection even when life feels overwhelming. If you've ever wondered how to stay connected with your partner amidst the chaos of parenting, or if you feel like you and your partner are just coexisting rather than truly connecting, this episode is for you. So let's dive in. Okay, welcome, Alyssa. I'm so glad you're here. And it's always funny talking about this later because I already said hi to you a minute ago.
That's okay.
So with this series being Love After Kids, I've changed that first question. So everyone is probably used to hearing the question, what is your definition of a balanced life? But because this is the series Love After Kids, we're going to be asking a little bit a different question. So that question is, what's one thing you've learned about maintaining balance in love and marriage, especially after kids? Or put another way, how do you keep the spark alive after kids?
hmm Yeah, so I think I can talk more about the first one, like the balance after kids. Our situation is a little bit different because I brought my daughter into our relationship. So we got together and my daughter came with. So we're a blended
Okay.
family now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're still learning. We've been together for 2 years, going on three now. And we've got to transition from the beginning stages of
Hmm.
dating, introducing your partner to your kids, and then moving in together and, you know, all of those fun things. And we even relocated recently. So we're doing a
Wow.
lot of life transitions together and figuring it out. But a cool thing that I hear from my partner quite often is that she's been able to actually transition with all of this versus the quick turnaround of we're dating and then we're together and then we're a family and we're
Okay.
jumping right into just doing all of those automatic, like go things. Uh,
Hmm.
so this
Do you mean y'all have been able to actually talk these things through? Like it wasn't just kind of
Mhm.
like you just fell into these things. So that's kind of
Right.
things that I've heard with other people in their relationships that lead into marriage. They sometimes feel like they kind of just fell into it sometimes. Like there wasn't
Mhm.
kind of this step by step where you go into thinking, oh, we're dating and then we're kind of more serious and then we have this conversation about marriage. Sometimes people don't even have that conversation.
Mhm.
So you feel like this has given y'all a chance to actually have those conversations or take it slower.
Absolutely. Yeah. Take it slower. And I think that was something that we both learned from our previous relationships because I
Mhm.
know for me, for sure, that was the process of just jumping right into the next thing. And for us, we have been able to take it slower, have those conversations, involve my daughter in those conversations. And she's 12, so we can have age appropriate conversations. And
Yeah.
even allow them to build their own relationship outside of just me and
Mm.
my partner being together, and
Yeah.
them figuring out where they fit and how they cohabitate and, have quality time and, whatever they want their relationship to look like, they're also in charge of that on their own.
That's awesome. And how has your partner having their own relationship with your daughter impacted y'all's relationship, like your partner and you?
I feel like it's been great. It's helpful for me to remove myself as that mediator that we can sometimes be
Mm-hmm.
in relationships and the middle person. Naturally, I am like, I want to save things and repair and be the hero sometimes. So it is a great opportunity for me to really zoom out and let them
Okay.
do what they're going to do based on their comfort levels. So communication and conversations with each of them have been necessary to even get that idea of, okay, well, do you even like spending time together alone?
Yeah.
Is that something that you guys even want to do? Or more so for my daughter, are you comfortable with this, that, and the other? So yeah, really allowing like choice and freedom and autonomy for them to build those relationships, and then for us to be able to come back together as a unit, as a blended family.
That's awesome. And so, even thinking about that question, do you even enjoy spending time with them? Even thinking about that as a parent and it being your blood child, like you birthed that child, or they're a part of you, sometimes we don't like, not that we don't like spending time with our children, but we don't know how to enjoy that time with our kids.
Mm-hmm.
So it's funny. It's like, do you enjoy spending time? It's like, dang, they get this extra option
Right.
that we don't feel like we get.
I agree. I agree. And my partner, she pulls that out quite often, is she appreciates that option.
Yeah.
She appreciates the option, but yes, yeah, and it's a balance, and then it's something that her and I, my partner and I, can come back and talk about. Like, did you enjoy your time there, and do you want to do this again, or would you rather keep it a family night, or
Hmm.
break up certain nights? Because my daughter and I will have mommy daughter night. Just asking, simply asking if they want to do that too.
Okay. Yeah. And what has been helpful for you and your partner in maintaining that connection?
Of just kind of like checking in and
Yeah.
keeping the
Hmm.
balance. I think really setting aside intentional time. Our schedules and our individual lives are fairly busy, and they don't really collide. We're not in the same circles.
Mm.
So we have to create this intentional time where we can connect, reevaluate, do date nights, and be able to really communicate what's going on for us in the moment so we can have balance overall.
And what got you there? Well, first, I want to say I do want to come back to the point where you said y'all are not in the same circles, because that I feel like can be a piece of both disconnection, but it also can be a really good connector as well if you're doing some of the right things like communication. But first,
Mhm.
how did y'all get to this place where you felt really comfortable communicating these things with each other? Because going slow in the relationship and having those conversations up front probably wasn't easy.
No, no, yeah, you're right. So it's been a slow process. It's been a slow process, but the cool, fortunate skill that's come together for both of us is that we both like to talk.
Okay.
We both like to talk, and intentionally, communication was one of our priorities for our relationship when we started. So I think I'll say that word more than anything today is the intention. We were very intentional with communication, needing to be at the forefront for just transparency and building trust and all of those bigger values that we
Yeah.
we really wanted to touch on. And I'll say, like, my partner, she wasn't this emotional, vulnerable, sharing person in the beginning. And even just building the trust and starting certain communication styles with that and getting comfortable with those types of things in the beginning were important and a practice for us.
Hmm. I'm really glad that you brought that up, because I think that in itself can be like an excuse or a barrier that people will use, that like, well, my partner he's just not that way. Or people will just say, I'm
Mhm.
just not that way. That's just not how I am. But we, in order to have healthy communication with your partner, you have to learn how to be that way, or else it's not going to work. Things are going to stay the way they are.
Absolutely. Yeah, it often redirects back to self for me. Like you said, I absolutely had to learn how to share and be vulnerable more so in the times when I didn't want to, when it's hard or when there's conflict or a mismatch or a disconnect. I had to
Mhm.
really look at my patterns and see what wasn't working in the past and figure out and make a choice if I want to keep doing that in this relationship or, whatever I was going to do or not. And I had to make those
Mhm.
changes myself. And fortunately, we began to role model that for each other in different ways.
That's awesome. And so are you saying that you kind of doing this inner work on yourself and recognizing your own barriers to communication and opening up allowed your partner to also kind of reflect and do the same?
I think so. I think so. And I'll say when I met her, she was transitioning into that, maybe not knowing it, but subconsciously I could see she was ready to figure out like how to tap into this emotional side. So we just kind of aligned in that way. But yeah, I
Mm,
would say me even talking about the vulnerability of like it is hard for me. I do want to shut down. Here are like my flaws per se, that maybe offered a safe space for her to say like, yeah, I don't want to talk about emotions either. I don't want to be this way either. So it just kind of
yeah.
aligned like good timing.
Yeah. And it's scary. It's scary opening up and actually talking about what's going on for you, what's on your heart, what's on your mind, what are your fears, your hopes and your dreams. Like all of that can be scary because in the back of our mind sometimes it's like, well, what are they going to think, or what if they think it's silly or impossible, and that rejection piece can really creep in.
Yeah, I would say that even shows up now. Like we're a
Mm.
couple years in, and we just had a conversation last week about this when I was just in a downtime and I'm like, well,
Mm.
I'm in a downtime. Like that's scary and it's hard and I'm overwhelmed. So,
Yeah.
we're still in the practice of sharing those things vocally.
Hmm. I mean, would you say that that's something that you have to continue to practice?
I would say so. Yeah, I would
Yeah.
say so. Hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I also think it's one of those things. And I actually was talking to a client about this, not even specifically about marriage, but of how they were more outgoing and they don't know what happened. Well, they have been working from home when that wasn't really something they were used to. And I said,
Hmm.
we don't realize all of these things are actually skills to be able to easily have conversations with people that we've never met. Like that's a skill that we have, just as communicating with our partners. It's a skill that we have to maintain because if we stop doing it, we can revert back to our old patterns.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think I see that often, like even reflecting on our relationship, that happens when we get into autopilot. Like that's
Mm,
exactly what happens sometimes is we're just getting into autopilot, going back to our automatic patterns or our emotional home or whatnot, and doing what we know versus what we've set out to do, like our intention and change this new habit and create a new pattern. So yeah,
yeah.
it's so easy.
What's helpful for you, or what are some things that you tell clients that helps them to kind of get out of the autopilot?
Recognition, and when we're noticing it, that's our power and chance to make that change. So we're just using the moment and the present. I use a lot of like relational therapy, past, present, and use the present as a tool versus that like shame and guilt that we can fall into of I'm doing this again or I'm falling back to the autopilot. Like we want to let that be what it is and then make a choice with what we have today and right now. So this moment, we recognized it and we can either move forward the same way or we can try to do something different, the slightest thing
Yeah.
different, and that's our power that we're getting back.
Mhm. Yeah. I also see that a lot too. And people kind of, I guess, get frustrated with themselves that, oh, I'm
Mhm.
back here, I'm doing this thing again. But the funny thing is if you were really back in that moment, you would not have been able to realize this.
True.
You would
Yeah.
have just kept going and going. Like the fact that you have been able to recognize that you're falling back into maybe an old habit or an old pattern is
Mhm.
progress in itself. That you've been able
Yeah.
to, like, because you can stop yourself. That's a
Mhm.
huge win. You now have the power to make the choice. Do I want to keep moving in this direction? Or do I want to kind of rechange some steps to go back into the direction that I actually want to go in?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's the same with our marriages and our relationships. We might be reverting back to old patterns from the past, but just you recognizing it is a good thing because you can
Mhm.
make that change.
Mhm. Yeah. And that's the difference, right? Like the measurable difference, like you said, is you're
Hmm.
recognizing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the good thing about like in relationship, in marriage, you don't have to make that change alone. You
Mhm.
can bring this up to your partner and be like, hey, I realize that maybe we're kind of going back into the same pattern, or even if it's just like something that you were doing. I realize I've been going back into the same pattern. And can you help me with some accountability? Because I really want to be doing this other thing.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a really helpful tool and skill to be mindful of. Like, I like to tell my clients we want to create options. So we're not feeling stuck. And when we are going back to our old pattern, well, I just have to do this because that's the only thing I know to do. And asking our partner is like one option. And, like, what are our other options? What can we create here? Really reflecting on the past when we might have felt choiceless and
Hmm.
looking at the present to say like, well, we have choices now, we're an adult and we're this version of ourselves, so we don't have to be as choiceless as we may once was.
Hmm.
We're not the
Yeah.
same.
Oh, absolutely. And also recognizing that a lot of these patterns that we do have formed when we were children and we really didn't have the choices that we do now have as
Hmm.
adults.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, as you know best, we carry those choiceless beliefs to
Mhm.
us with our relationships.
Yeah.
And so we just adapt them and think that even with our partners now, it's the same. We're choiceless just like we were with our parents. And
Mhm.
pulling that mindset out and that difference is huge. Because again, we're here where we can disrupt the disturbance. Like, this is your partner.
Yeah.
It's not your mom or your dad or your caregiver or whatnot. And we don't have to treat it the same. You have that choice and power to really step in and make a difference and a change.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Disrupt the disturbance.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. And so, one of the things that's been helpful for us overall, like we have shared goals and visions for life, right? But having like a shared goal for my husband and I to be working on together or a shared project,
Hmm.
that's always kind of helpful for keeping us on the same page. And that kind of ends up being the buffer for our check-ins because we know we're going to kind of go back and we're going to have conversations about that goal or project. Because
Hmm.
I know sometimes when I bring up for couples to like do check-ins, they
Hmm.
feel really weird about it, like, well, but what do we talk about? Or they think like, oh, this is just going to be us complaining about what's going wrong. It's like, no, the check-in is really just to practice this open communication with each other
Hmm.
and practice having each other's back. It's not like you're just going to go dump on your partner of how all the things are going wrong.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think check-ins are a cool tool and I enjoy doing them in my relationship. And it's
Mm.
kind of the same that you're speaking of with like the big project or this goal. Ours is trips. We love to travel and we tend to do this like 1 year off, 1 year on, where we are going full force on vacations, or 1 year we might be completely saving. So
Mm.
this year we're in the fortunate year of we're on and our summer
Ooh.
is completely booked with trips. So our check-in is,
That's fun.
yeah, yeah, getting to look forward to those things and planning and whatnot is kind of like the zoom out lens. Like these are our
Mm.
motivators to make sure that we're staying balanced and on track in between. So when we're going on these trips, we're good.
No, that's awesome. Especially because you're still always working towards that goal of the vacation and relaxation mode, right? Because even
Mm-hmm.
on the off season, right, where you're working towards saving and setting aside that money to the following year do this vacations that you want to do, you're still moving that direction. You're still moving in a forward direction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's like the big reward at the end of the day. But all of the work comes in the day to day, like you said, the
Mm-hmm.
planning, the saving, and really being mindful of the day to day. We still have to go to work. We're still in busy schedules.
Yeah.
So being able to check in about how those things been feeling for us in the meantime while we're looking forward to this off time and a chance to spend real quality time together and do those fun things that we like.
Mm-hmm. When I'm working with couples, a lot of the things that we talk about is remembering your shared values and shared goals and
Mm-hmm.
what y'all are wanting to work towards together as a couple. And even in this example you gave for what y'all do for travel and how you save up for that, those are like mini little goals and values that you're working towards together in one big kind of, I don't want to call it a project because it's not a project, but it's this I guess we can call it a project.
Yeah, you
The
can call it
project of
project.
vacationing,
Yeah.
vacation planning, I guess. I mean, because the act of like going on vacation is not a project, but I guess planning it
Yeah,
is.
it can be.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially if it's not just the three of y'all,
Mm-hmm.
if it
Mm-hmm.
involves other people too. That can get messy with lots of different schedules and people.
Sure, sure. Yeah. And we've done that where we'll meet family in New York or something. So for sure, for sure. But that's just the fun side of it. Like that's one example of where there's this fun reward attached to it. So we get
Hmm.
to do fun check-ins. But I
Yeah.
would say more so of what you're saying and what you're talking about with your clients probably is like the day to day, the ins and outs of maybe we don't have the luxury of talking about a vacation, and what we're
Hmm.
going to. So the values and really understanding that for one another, I would say would be necessary and important. Yeah.
Yeah. So bringing it down to a different example, like the value of how you want to keep your home.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not just about the cleaning part. I think a lot of the times we're focused on the cleaning part, but when we're just focused on those tasks, it can be difficult to agree upon anything. But when you look at the bigger picture of like, what does a kept home mean to you? What does it mean to me? What is our shared vision within that? And when you can decide that, the other pieces will be easier to fall into place.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not fall into place, but to decide upon because you
Right.
have the shared vision and goal of what a kept house looks like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I like what you mentioned about understanding what that means to our people, to our partner, and even figuring out like what does that mean for yourself? So what are you going to express and
Mm-hmm.
communicate to your partner of what you're looking for?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because you might not even know those things,
Right.
right?
Right.
It might just kind of be like, well, this is what my family did. This is how our house was. So that's what I think it should be when it's not about what you think it should be. It's like, how do you actually want it? You have choices here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can have it that way if you really want to, if that's like your true desire, or it can be something different.
Absolutely. Yeah. Something that my partner and I do is also go off of feeling. So we do that
Mm.
for our birthdays. We did that with our living room too. Like, well, how do you want it to feel? How do we
You
want?
just like read my mind. I was like about to say
Yeah.
that. Because
Yeah.
I love that too. Like, what's the feeling that you want to feel if you can't
Yeah.
put any words to it?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so that sensation, or even like a memory sometimes, like what do you want to remember? What kind of memory do you want to create? And sometimes we'll use that for our birthdays, especially if it's a milestone. Like, how do you want to remember your 35th birthday or your 40th birthday or whatnot? So, just kind of getting creative with it.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, I'm a huge like feeler person because
Hmm.
I myself just have a hard time envisioning things. Like if I'm imagining something in my mind, I close my eyes and I picture anything. I don't see anything at all.
Yeah.
But I can feel stuff like really easily. If that
Hmm.
makes any sense.
No, it does.
Yeah.
It does. That's how my wife is too. She's like, I want to feel this way. And I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, well, I'm more of the visionary and I can plan and create things. So that's when, like we're the yin and yang for one another.
Oh yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, because my husband's very visual, so he can like he'll pull up things like, well, is it like this? Like, is this what you mean? Because if he's just trying to describe something to me, like we were planning on what our next home is going to be like, and he's just throwing stuff out there like, oh, what do you think about this kind of style house, and it has this on the top. I'm like, I don't know, like you're just gonna have to show me, you're gonna have to pull something up and show me a picture because it's not doing anything for me.
Yeah, yeah.
So even something like that small example of a conversation, I had to be brave enough to tell him I can't picture that. That's something that
Hmm.
I cannot do, and then this is what I need from you so
Yeah.
that I can understand where you're coming from, what you're talking about.
Hmm. Yeah. Let me ask, like, did you always have that skill to ask for what you need?
Oh no.
Me
No.
neither.
No, I was like, and still recovering people pleaser. I'm so much better now. Let me tell you, I'm so
Hmm.
much better now. But it took a lot of work for me to be able to even like ask for help, let someone do something for me, and be relaxed when they're doing it,
Mm,
not kind of like
yeah.
feeling uncomfortable and like, ugh, I just want to do it and get it over with kind of thing.
Hmm.
No, it did take some work and practice. And fortunately, my husband was really helpful in getting me there because he was like, just tell me what's going on, like just tell me what's on your mind, I want to know these things, because I would keep things from him, and it's not like intentional, we're not
Right.
thinking these things like I'm gonna just keep this for myself and not tell him.
Hmm.
This is like the old programming, like
Hmm.
the old wiring, what we're used to keep the peace.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Now I found myself in the same position of, it wasn't even about like asking for help. It was a piece where you said, let them do it for you and be
Mm.
calm. That was very uncomfortable for me because even as a mom, like as a mom, it is more so of like, let me just do it so we can get through this and move on to
Mm.
the next thing. So to, yeah, be calm when somebody else is helping or offering. Yeah, that was new to me. I think I'm still
Oh
working
yeah.
on it.
The other new thing to me was being okay that if I asked my husband to help me with something, that he wasn't like totally excited to do it. There was sometimes just like a, okay, yeah, I'll do it. But my instant reaction would be like, oh, no, 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 don't worry, I got it. Like, I'm already up. Like, let me do it. Versus, like, it's okay that he really doesn't want to do it, but he's
Hmm.
willing to do it. Why do I want him to be like, oh, yeah, sure, honey, no problem?
Yeah.
Like, yes, that's nice, but that's not always going to be the reality, especially if maybe you've had a tough day at work or something. But just the
Hmm.
fact that your partner is willing to do them, they're getting up, they're going to do it. Sometimes we have to start there.
Hmm. Hmm. No, absolutely. I just went through that a couple days ago too, here, where the response wasn't necessarily like
Mm,
what I was comfortable with, I guess. And I was like, but it doesn't sound like you're wanting to do this, or the same thing with you. Like, you just sound so resistant or whatnot. And they're like,
mm.
I'm just listening to you. I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah.
listening and hearing what you're saying.
But I mean, even this is a really great example because you asked for clarification in that
Hmm.
moment. You didn't
Yep.
just like keep all of that in and then take over.
Mm-hmm. Right, right. Which is different. Which is different.
Yes.
Yep. Because
Yeah, we can go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah, I would have come back around and say, like, you know what? Just forget it. Forget I even asked. Forget the conversation. Like, I'll be okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, because we forget that sometimes we've learned to like read the room really well or mind read or just kind of like take people's body language in a certain way when we might be reading it all wrong.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that shows up the most for me is doing exactly that, is finding the incongruencies, because we do that at work all day. And, like,
Yeah.
we're trained and skilled to call it out. So then when I do, and it's not that piece of what I know, like in a client, I can call out something that's incongruent and it's on the dot, like, oh, I was right.
Mm,
I knew that. But
yeah.
then with my partner and in my own relationship, and I'm like, this is real. It's not matching. You're saying yes, but like you said, your body
Yeah.
language is different. And they're like, yeah, because I don't want to do that, but I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Like you said.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. And even for like an example for listeners listening who aren't therapists, maybe you're really good at reading your mom or your
Mm-hmm.
parent caregiver or even siblings. You're really good at reading that. And so you automatically think, well, like I'm really good at also reading my spouse or partner. That
Mm-hmm.
might not be the case. It might not translate, just like our work doesn't always translate into real life.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It really doesn't. It
Well, I
really
wouldn't say, let me take that back. Not real life, but like personal life.
personal. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. Personal in our home, it doesn't always pan out the same.
Oh, yeah. We also have to like take our therapy hat off when we come home because it can sometimes hurt us
Hmm.
than help us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I agree.
So I want to kind of wrap back around because I had said I would come back to this, but you and your partner, you said y'all have different circles.
Hmm.
What is that like for y'all? Because I know sometimes people are kind of scared to branch off into a different circle because they think that's going to pull them and their partner apart.
Hmm. Yeah, so ours was kind of placed upon us. She's in the military, for one, so her profession is completely different from mine. And I have my private practice and I'm virtual. So I'm also a new entrepreneur. So I'm figuring out that world as well. I've been doing this for like 2 to 3 years, being a virtual entrepreneur, I'll say.
Yeah.
And
And
she,
private practice owner.
yeah, private
Yeah.
practice owner. So our worlds are fairly different in that. And for most people who are employed or have their own businesses, that takes up most of their day. So she's at
Mhm.
work 12 hours a day sometimes. And then, I mean, like right now, she's gone. So she's not even not even here. And then as business owners, we are working around the clock as well. So we're not in the same circle. I'm at home, she's at work or traveling. So yeah, we don't have a lot of time to collide. So that intentional piece of having mornings together when we can, we go to the gym
Mhm.
together when we can in the morning before we start our day. And then I see her when she gets home after everybody's
Mhm.
bedtime. So, really trying to find the balance of the day to day and the moment of where we can come back together, because we don't run in any of the same circles.
Mm, yeah. So for us, my husband and I, we share friends. And it's
Uh,
funny because it kind of happened accidentally. Like we didn't all go to a barbecue and like met each other's husband and wife or anything or partners. It was I somehow met the wife and he happened to be working with the husband or
uh,
partner and then we just like ended up somewhere and I'm like, "Oh, you know them and they know you." And it was kind of those things happened a lot. So it just happened that I knew the spouse and he did too.
oh, that's
And that's
funny.
and then like they knew other people. It just kind of worked. I don't mind blending different friends. I know some people are like, I don't like to mix my friends,
Hmm.
but it makes it so much easier as a parent when you can just
True.
all get together at the same time. But recently I've made different friends we've just been getting together. So it's a group of women and we all run together. And so I've done kind of my own thing too, but he has his own thing too, that he goes and works on a ranch and does that. He takes our youngest son, but we're like doing separate things.
Mm-hmm.
And we have like kind of our own thing to do, which is good because we have our own space. It's like kind of like our own hobbies that we're doing and
Yeah.
getting to enjoy doing on our own, which I don't always like to go to the ranch. I would rather stay home and catch up
Mm-hmm.
on chores than go hang out at the ranch and then still have to do these chores that are my responsibility.
Yep.
I mean, he has his own. I'm not saying like I do them all. He has his own.
Sure.
But sometimes my stuff, yeah, I like to do it on the weekend because I don't like to do some of it during the week. I just would rather wait till the weekend. But so like it's totally okay to have separate things and do separate things as long as you also have something that's connecting you as well. It's when your life is totally separate, I think is when we can get a little bit in trouble because then we're losing that connection to our partner. There's nothing anchoring you to back
Mm-hmm.
together.
Yeah. 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 And I've seen that too, like with clients or even in my past personal life where there is nothing that anchors. So we kind of just wing it and also wait
Mm,
until something does come together. And that doesn't necessarily work either. So I like the system that we've created, which is really focusing on our individual time, those individual hobbies that you mentioned, and then
mm,
what's the thing that does anchor us? Like I mentioned, travel and vacations is our thing. That's what we love to do. So we're going to figure out a plan to make sure that we're getting a
mm,
vacation or a couple's trip. And then also, where's our family time fit in? Because we're a blended
yeah.
family, and my daughter goes to spend time with her dad in the summers even. So what are
Mm,
we doing there? Are we doing a couples trip, or are we taking the time to do some solo trips for our
yeah.
individualism? But
Mm,
looking at those four key pieces for us really allows our system to work.
yeah. I love that. I love that you brought up even like being able to do a solo trip because I know some people who can't even wrap their mind
Mm-hmm.
around doing something on their own. Not and so like traveling on their own is like almost out the window. But it's
Yeah.
totally healthy as long as you and your partner are on the same page and you can express what that gives you and what that does for you.
Yeah, I agree too. Like, I completely encourage it, but I know all of the barriers that can come with that too, and the insecurities, and not within ourselves, but just our relationship. Like if there's trust
Yeah.
or skepticism, we have to work through all of those things. So it does take a process. It is work to get to those points of
Hmm.
feeling secure and safe enough to go on solo trips and that be a healthy thing for your relationship.
Oh
So,
yeah.
yeah, just being
Hmm.
mindful of that.
Yeah. Well, we're about out of time and I don't want to
Yeah.
like us to accidentally go over. I want to respect
Right.
your time. But if you want to talk a little bit about your private practice and what you specialize in, you can go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so I service adults and I'm all virtual right now, and I do service Kansas, Missouri, and Texas. I do a lot of relational and EMDR therapy. So I'm working on that attachment based trauma. People tend to come to me for wanting to let go of unhealthy relationships or past relationships. And we use that past present approach with the relational therapy and then EMDR for that trauma focus to really work together on how to move on and just be present and healthy in your current relationship, or if you're wanting to move forward, having healthy relationships with others. So, yeah, a lot of attachment base. a lot of
That's
it.
awesome. No, it's
Yeah.
really important. Really important work.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Well, thank you so much, Alyssa, for taking the time to join us. And if you're listening and you thought this was a great episode, be sure to share with your friends. The more you share, the more this podcast gets out there and the more we can help each other out as moms and in our partnerships and marriages.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
We'll see you.